What is up, guys, and welcome to the Casual Wrestling Show, the #1 wrestling show meant specifically for casual wrestling fans. Each and every week, I, the Notorious NerdyD, topples the biggest questions in pro wrestling. You can find the show every week on YouTube and on your favorite podcast network. If you enjoy the content, make sure to join the Casual Community Discord group. The link is in the description of this video, and make sure to like this video on YouTube and leave a review on whatever podcast network you listen to this show on. All right. So let's jump right into this podcast this week. I have a very special announcement to make. I am officially going to turn over Wednesday nights and Wednesday night wrestling to the IWC. You guys can officially have Wednesday nights and you guys can have AEW Dynamite, because as far as I'm concerned, there is a new standard that has been set for what I expect when I watch AEW wrestling, and that is what I saw on AEW Collision this past Saturday. AEW showed me that it can go back to true wrestling roots. It could go back to where wrestling isn't just a high-flying Circus Soleil spectacular, but it could actually be a gritty, in-the-trenches, war-style wrestling. And to be honest, I cannot be more excited about what I saw on Saturday night. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the man of the week, the voice of the voiceless, the one, the only CM Punk is fucking back, man. He lit up the wrestling world this week. And for all of the IWC fans that for the last 2 years have sat around and doubted CM Punk and written him off, calling him finished, saying CM Punk is washed up. All of the internet wrestling trolls who said CM Punk is all talk and no action. I need you guys to take a second, bask in the glory of that epic promo that CM Punk dropped on Saturday night. I mean, in true CM Punk fashion, he laid down basically an open challenge to everybody in AEW to step the fuck up. He reminded us of all of the issues that exist in AEW. He made his ambitions clear, and he reminded us that he is still fully capable of carrying a wrestling television show on his shoulders. And let's remember, Tony Khan created this world. This is Tony Khan's creation. And what we're seeing on Saturday nights is now the CM Punk playground. And I got to admit, I liked it. Now, I saw the internet chatter. I saw the IWC. I saw the Twitter world. Everybody jumping online trying to convince the rest of the wrestling world that CM Punk looked weathered, right? People saying CM Punk looked worn out. CM Punk looked old. I didn't see it. I don't think I saw the same thing that you were looking at. I did see a sign of aging in CM Punk. He's getting older, but what I saw experience. I don't see signs of fatigue. I see the marks of a seasoned wrestler who has been through the wars, who has wrestled with the personal and professional demons. And he's come out on top on the other side. Stronger, in fact. This isn't a sign of weakness to me. This is the mark of somebody who could be a champion. And yo, let's be honest. Did this not feel like the return of the old CM Punk that we've all been waiting for, that all of us who were fans of CM Punk and WWE have been waiting for? This was the real CM Punk. This was the CM Punk that we fell in love with in 2011. Let me say it right now. Rest in peace to the happy, humble CM Punk. I honestly got goosebumps watching that promo on Saturday night on Collision. I mean, does anyone remember, this is CM Punk. He's not afraid to speak his mind. He's not afraid to tell it like it is. He's going to rub people the wrong way. And you're already seeing a lot of the wrestlers from AEW jump on social media. Oh, and you're seeing the Dave Meltzers. Oh, CM Punk rubs certain people in AEW the wrong way. Man, tell those wrestlers to stop being a bunch of baby back bitches and quit being sensitive. They need to understand this is what is good for business in AEW. Punk is not only a wrestler, CM Punk is a businessman, and he understands that this type of shit is what moves the needle. This type of stuff is what sells pay-per-views. This should be a wake-up call to the rest of the AEW roster. CM Punk is not going to stop. He's going to continue to shake things up. And if they can't handle it, if some of these AEW wrestlers can't handle the truth, well, the truth is exactly what they need. The truth is exactly what AEW needs if they're trying to push their business forward in 2023. Look, the debut episode of AEW Collision honestly left me on a high. I can't wait till next Saturday. That's weird. Never said that about AEW. It was a show that was mixed with strong style wrestling, high impact wrestling, calculated pacing is what was most important. It felt like there was a rhyme and reason to everything happening on AEW Collision. This is what AEW has lacked for so long. And don't get it twisted. I am a WWE fan. And so I can recognize the energy that we felt on Monday Night Raw, that slight spark that we felt on Monday Night Raw, that was a direct reaction to what happened on AEW Collision. Triple H took notice to what he saw Saturday, and he has changed for the better some of the low points of Monday Night Raw. And this might be a slight overreaction, but if WWE isn't careful and they slip back into that, mundane storytelling that they sometimes fall into, AEW Collision could quickly become my new favorite wrestling television show. Am I saying that after one episode? Sure. But I think I saw potential there. Now, even outside of just the CM Punk stuff, there was still other good things for me to enjoy on this show. I saw some people go, yeah, after CM Punk, I fell asleep. Well, you're not paying attention because that was a solid 2 hours of wrestling. I mean, it has to be said out loud. Welcome back, Andrade. Welcome back, Miro. Wardlow and Luchasaurus. That was so anti everything that AEW is, and it is everything that I have been dying to see from AEW. Even the match with the Outcast and Sky Blue, it was a fun watch. Everything can't be, top of the mountain. I was entertained. And then we rolled into just a fucking awesome main event. And this is coming from somebody, you guys know, I'm not over the top sold on FTR, but the combination of FTR and CM Punk, it's the right mixture. It's the sugar and the Kool-Aid. It is CM Punk brings the personality, and I can see FTR can bring a solid wrestling match. On top of all of that, the Collision set looked absolutely phenomenal, right? The wrestling was there. And I really, really, really hope that AEW, Tony Khan, that Collision can keep up this momentum. I think there's something there. Now, I think they're going to have to build on it. I think that they're going to probably need a clear roster split. I think that we're going to need to see a line drawn in the sand so that CM Punk can see who's with him and he can do his best to make this thing work. I also think that Collision's going to need its own defined titles. But I am more confident right now than I was the last 3 weeks when I kept saying, I want Collision to be good. I think it's destined to fail. After week 1, I'm going to change my perspective here. I'm going to go, Collision was good. And if they treat this thing correctly, this thing has a huge opportunity to be successful long term. All right, so let me know in the comments what you guys thought about AEW Collision. Do you think it can find long-term success, or do you think this was a one-off flash in the pan because we were in Chicago? So Collision wasn't the only big wrestling thing that happened this week. It's also official that Logan Paul is back, showing his face on WWE television, and he's figured out a way to use his celebrity to worm his way into the Money in the Bank match in London. So now Logan Paul is the odds-on favorite to win the 2023 WWE Money in the Bank briefcase and championship match contract. Now I get it. I understand this. I get what WWE is doing here. Logan Paul, he's not just a social media sensation. He's a brand. He's a business. And he comes with a very large audience, an audience that's possibly the size of small, like a couple small countries. And it's an audience that's loyal to Logan Paul that will tune in to see Logan Paul do anything that Logan Paul does, especially the formulaic wrestling that we've come to know from Logan Paul. Get in the ring, hold your own, hit a couple big spots, and then let the rest of the guys kind of carry the match to the finish line. That's not a knock on him. That's a formula that's worked perfectly for Logan Paul. So I understand what WWE is doing here. I understand that by adding Logan Paul to Money in the Bank, you just added millions and millions of eyeballs to the premium live event. It makes sense, right? It's 100% a business move, and it's a brilliant business move. But I think I'm on to something here. I think I can see through the smoke and mirrors. I think I can smell through the bullshit in this situation, because I think this was a very intelligent play by Triple H. I think this is smoke and mirrors. I think this is a swerve to get everybody looking at Logan Paul so that we can be surprised when the man that's actually deserving to win the match wins. Because let's be clear. Let's be real clear on one thing. As exciting as it is to have Logan Paul back, and Money in the Bank especially, there's only one man who truly deserves to win the Money in the Bank briefcase. And that man goes by the name of L.A. Knight. Why? Because he's over. Organically over. No bullshit over. The crowd cheers for him every time he steps out. Doesn't matter what city they're in. Doesn't matter if they're in an arena, a stadium. People are hyped for L.A. Knight. He's simply over. It's constant fanfare for L.A. Knight. Doesn't matter if he's in the ring with Rey Mysterio. It doesn't matter if he's in the ring with Logan Paul. The fans pop for L.A. Knight. L.A. Knight has shown that even with terrible stories, he still has enough drive and tenacity and raw talent to get to the top. Let's talk about the bullshit Bray Wyatt story he was put in, or how he was asked to job for Xavier Woods. But let's be honest, guys. There's nothing better to watch and nothing more dangerous in WWE than somebody who has found the love of the crowd and also has the ability to embarrass any other superstar when he picks up a microphone. That's L.A. Knight. I'll take it one step further, though. If Logan Paul somehow manages to win this Money in the Bank match, and L.A. Knight is once again left with nothing moving forward, no storyline that makes sense, there is a high possibility, and I'm not bullshitting, there's a high possibility that I just turn off my fucking TV for a couple of weeks and completely boycott WWE. I'll turn my attention to AEW Collision if you want me to, WWE. And it's not that I have anything against Logan Paul. It's just there's one man who deserves to win this match. I actually really like Logan Paul. I've enjoyed him in the WWE. But if WWE panics at the last minute and hands this victory to Logan Paul instead of the homegrown organic talent of L.A. Knight, who's built himself a spotlight, there's going to be an incredibly sour taste in my mouth. And I think it's sour enough that I'll need a couple of weeks to recover. Now, despite all of my concerns, I will admit 100% I'm actually enjoying the build up to this year's Money in the Bank. Adding Logan Paul absolutely adds an element of surprise. It adds a wild card. It will make it more fun to watch. That's fine. It's going to be fun, but the stakes are high for me in this one. I've put a lot of attention on LA Knight. I am a huge LA Knight fan. This cannot be the point in time where he lets me down. This is shaping up to be a pretty fire Money in the Bank. So at the end of the night, if this becomes the night of Logan Paul, it's probably going to be the last night I watch for a while, because there's only one night that truly matters, and that's LA Knight. All right, so let me know who you want to see win Money in the Bank in the comments. Are you pulling for LA Knight, or are you as LA Knight said, a teenage girl and hoping that Logan Paul wins the Money in the Bank this year? Or is there somebody else that you think is a long shot that could possibly pull it off? Let me know. All right, so speaking of Money in the Bank and Logan Paul, Ricochet was in the news this week. I got sent a clip of an interview that Ricochet did on a podcast this past week where he talked about certain wrestlers being given certain opportunities that other wrestlers are not given because certain wrestlers are typecast and essentially become reoccurring circus acts in WWE. And he went on to talk about how, WWE, everybody in WWE has these ideas and they present them to Triple H and Vince McMahon, and there's a hierarchy. The champions, kind of get preferential treatment. Then you've got your main event players. Then you've got everybody else kind of fighting for scraps on the bottom. I understand where he's coming from. I can see where he's coming from. I did eventually go on to read the entire interview, which changed my perception a little bit of the article. Because when I first saw the piece from the clip, I thought this is just Ricochet bitching and complaining. This is a guy who I perceive to be, quote unquote, boring. This is a guy who I've perceived to be a gimmick that is meant for children. This is that guy stepping out of place and bitching and complaining because he's not given a free ticket to the main event. But after I actually went back, found the full interview, watched it, saw the full context, I will admit my perspective definitely shifted. I don't think that Ricochet is being, a baby back bitch. I think that, I can see the gripe of Ricochet feeling like just another voice in the crowd. He's actually got a point. He may be a voice of reason when it comes to this topic. Ricochet, he kind of delved into the crux of the situation. He, describing how certain characters get a reset every time they enter into the ring. And I didn't know what he meant at first. And then I did some thinking and it made more sense. A guy like Ricochet who goes out and delivers week after week. There's no doubt. He's not my cup of tea, but I'm intelligent enough to watch the product and go, he's good at what he does. He's extremely good at what he does. I don't like his gimmick. He's not meant for me, but he's very good at what he does. He's a spectacle. He's a high-flying wonder. And he came out and said he doesn't get the same opportunities as a guy like Seth Rollins or AJ Styles. Because when AJ Styles loses a match or when Seth Rollins loses a match, they get to come out the next week and acknowledge the adversity they've been through. Whereas a character like Ricochet is expected to come out the next week and just flip again, right? Just do what you do and keep doing it. And so I can see the gripe. I can see the gripe from Ricochet that there isn't really the ability to evolve a character. Now, it's not something I've ever picked up on until Ricochet saw it, but I can see the gripe that Ricochet has when he discussed the cycle limits of his opportunities for storytelling and character direction, right? My only issue here is, Ricochet, I don't necessarily see this as a bad thing, maybe the way you see it. I see this a lot as you have a job security that not every wrestler who enters into the WWE is going to have. There are a lot of guys who try to put themselves into contention to be in the main event, and they end up failing and getting dropped off of the roster. High caliber talent. I think there's guys who position themselves to try to be the guy and they fall flat. And I think you're looking at yourself as a guy who's been typecast into, somebody who does just come out and flip every week, but I don't see that as being a bad thing. I understand guys like Ricochet, guys like Braun Strowman. Like Braun Strowman, look at him. He was a guy who kind of got thrust into a main event picture for a little bit, but then, once they pulled him back, Braun Strowman's really just kind of the big guy. That's what they use him for. He's not being featured in main event stories. He's just a spectacle that people come to see. In the same way that I kind of think Omos is used, right? Shinsuke Nakamura is kind of used in this same light. But these guys who are able to carve out small niches within the wrestling industry, that's job security. Don't look down on being a spectacle that people come to see. Don't look down on being independent from needing a title to feel important. I don't think that Ricochet with the Intercontinental Championship was any more important to me than just Ricochet on a weekly basis. When Ricochet comes out, my kids go, we like Ricochet. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Every wrestler doesn't need to be catered towards the, 18 to 45 male demographic. But I do understand where Ricochet is coming from. I can understand the frustration of being someone who's really good at what you do and never reaching kind of the pinnacle of that business, right? Of having an arsenal of skills, but being boxed into a single dimension. Because it is a weird dynamic between the audience expectations and trying to develop a character for professional wrestling. On one hand, there's a kid who shows up every week and expects to see Ricochet do the Ricochet thing, right? But on the other hand, you have the IWC and the older fans who go, well, there's no levels to Ricochet. And if you're never given a microphone, you're never given that opportunity. If you're never given the opportunity to come out and talk about adversity, you really can't build the proper character. He needs, Ricochet needs the ability to get out of character, which is that gimmick built for kids, and show some levels, show some frustration, grab a microphone and be given the opportunity to say his piece to the crowd. But I think this is a more typical problem in WWE in general, where guys are just not given the ability to show personality outside of what WWE has packaged and presented to the audience on a weekly basis. They're not giving these people the ability to get over with the crowd by connecting on a level that may be outside of just pure in-ring talent. I think WWE has to realize that even a guy like Ricochet, who's a high-flying acrobatic specialist, or a guy like Braun Strowman, who's a powerhouse technician, you can't limit those stories to those guys only doing that one thing, or this is what you end up with. You end up with guys who feel slightly slighted for not being able to have more time to develop who they really are. I think if given the chance, Ricochet could probably be a well-perceived character in the 18 to 45 demographic. I just don't think WWE sees any profit in doing that. And so I think WWE and Triple H are going to have to investigate ways to make guys like Ricochet, guys like Braun Strowman more interesting and create deeper characters for these guys. Instead of just presenting this guy's a flip guy, we give him a cool entrance. He comes out, he does a couple flips. Doesn't matter if he wins, doesn't matter if he loses. He'll be here next week. Same with Braun Strowman, right? He's going to pick guys up over their head. He's going to flip over a couple of cars, but it doesn't matter. Win or lose, Braun Strowman probably never going to be in the world, heavyweight title picture. Same with Ricochet, right? These guys are kind of, they're boxed in, and I get the frustration. I just don't necessarily know that I agree that it's a bad thing, because job security in professional wrestling is a highly, highly important thing. You guys let me know, do you agree with Ricochet? Do you think that guys that get typecast as, a high flyer or just a big man, do you think they deserve the ability to kind of flesh out their character and do more than just, be a one-off circus act? Let me know in the comments what you think. All right, so transitioning out of Ricochet, even though he's still pretty relevant to this next topic, we've seen the last couple of weeks, we've seen Ricochet and Shinsuke Nakamura in a feud that seemingly, I can't really identify who's the babyface and who's the heel in that situation. And we've seen Bianca Belair and Charlotte Flair, and I think the same. I can't really identify who they're pushing as a babyface and who they're pushing as the heel in that situation. So I think there's a weird phenomenon taking place in WWE right now, and a couple of different stories where clear lines of good and evil are being blurred a little bit. And I'm not sure, I haven't come to a full conclusion yet if I think it's hurting Or is it helping storylines that have traditionally involved baby faces, the good guys, and villains, heels, the bad guys? But it feels like Triple H is kind of evolving the storytelling process here in WWE and blurring these lines. The dichotomy doesn't seem to any longer be viewed as a singular good versus evil. It seems like we're getting just, human versus human, which I don't know. I don't know if I'm mad about that. I think there's a lot of people on the internet asking the question, and I've seen it from multiple different sources. In 2023, do we have to have the label babyface and heel? And I think a good place to start is let's take a closer look at Charlotte Flair and Bianca Belair, because there's multiple angles we can kind of talk about here. Right off the bat, Charlotte Flair is typically regarded as one of the greatest female heels of all time. So it seems natural in this story to just go Charlotte bad guy, Bianca Belair good guy. But then there's a side of me that goes, well, wouldn't it be fun to see what Bianca Belair could do if she gets a run at playing the bad guy? And the constant argument that I see when I make this assumption or I have this opinion that Bianca Belair should have a heel turn is, well, if Bianca Belair turns heel, who's going to play the baby face? And the answer I tend to give back is, why do we have to define who the baby face is? The reality is, some characters are just more nuanced and don't need the restrictions that come from being labeled good guy or bad guy. I understand. I get the historical significance of babyface and heel. Most wrestling fans find comfort in the idea that there's a good guy and we cheer for the good guy, and there's a bad guy and we boo the bad guy. It's a classic trope in storytelling. Good versus evil. But modern audiences, the attention span of people, I don't think we respond quite the same. I think in everything we do, we find it hard to define good versus evil these days. And I think wrestling fans are becoming more sophisticated. Even casual fans are starting to appreciate a little more complexity from characters that can walk on both sides of that aisle, right? Kevin Owens tends to do it a little bit. Becky Lynch tends to do it a little bit. They typically have called them like tweeners, but it seems more and more that almost every character is developing a little bit of this. And I can't say that it's a bad thing. If you look at other popular television shows, characters tend to blur the lines. There tends to be seasons where certain people are good guys and seasons where they're bad guys, but they never just fully commit to an arc. They tend to have characteristics on both sides. They do some good things, they do some bad things, and it often makes those characters more intriguing and more relatable to just like the common everyday person. And I'll make a controversial point. I think that the traditional concept of babyface and heel is probably something that's holding WWE back at this point in time if they're going to lean into the non-defined characters that don't have actual gimmicks. If we're not going to create characters that have defined gimmicks, that have divine motivation, then we have to stop acting like people are motivated by being a hero and a villain. We've got to take those labels away completely. If we're not going to give people gimmicks, I don't think we need baby faces and heels. The limit that you're putting on creative possibilities for characters and stories when they don't have a gimmick is held down even more by them then having to follow this set of like, well, you can't cheat. You're a good guy. What if instead of that, we just fully embrace that all characters are complex, that all characters can switch allegiances at any time, that they can have a good week and their attitude could shift on a week-to-week basis and have a bad week the next time? It could lead to more immersive storytelling and more engagement from the audience and more relatable characters that we possibly could get behind. Why does Austin Theory have to be a heel? I don't get it anymore. You took away all the things that made him feel like a heel. You took away the gimmick, so why does he have to be a bad guy? Why can't Austin Theory just be a guy? Some days he does some bad things, some days he does some good things. The traditional roles of babyface, and heel, I know they're fundamental to the history of wrestling, but I think it's time to acknowledge that there might be an evolution in storytelling happening. I think audiences might prefer wrestlers like Charlotte Flair and Bianca Belair if you don't pigeonhole them into one style, right? I mean, look at Shinsuke Nakamura and Ricochet. I really can't define who is who, but I like what's going on there. They could square off in a storyline, and maybe fans just get to pick who they like better. Half of the time now, fans cheer for the heel, WWE fucking panics, and they turn a heel to babyface, which completely ruins and alters the character. I think it's inevitable, maybe more than even inevitable. I think it's necessary that for the continued growth of WWE and professional wrestling, I think it's time we just start working outside the lines of labeling guys a good guy or a bad guy. Allow Bianca Belair to cheat when she's frustrated. Allow Charlotte Flair to have an ego, but still not speak down to the crowd. I think, let's give it a shot. It could work. I see a possibility. But you guys let me know what you think. Do you guys still enjoy stories with well-defined babyface and heel? Or do you guys think it's time that we just let go of those labels and we allow people to just be complex characters who can go down whatever avenue they want to on a weekly basis? All right, so I think it's time for me. I've held off on this for a couple weeks, but I think it's time to give proper attention to the Bloodline and this epic storyline that has taken place over the last couple weeks. I've held off on just definitively screaming out, this is the greatest story in professional wrestling, but let's be honest. This is the greatest story in the history of professional wrestling. I think we have to take a couple minutes to really just soak in what has happened. Everything that has happened for the last 2 years and everything that has happened since the Tribal Chief hit 1,000 days as Universal Undisputed WWE Champion. You could go back and look at the tape, right? This isn't a sudden breakup. This isn't a story that just happened this year. This is 2.5, 3 years in the making. I remember a year ago calling for the Bloodline to break up, and somehow they kept it going for another year. And the weird part of all of that is the IWC is even starting to come around to this idea that Roman Reigns may be the real deal. Now, they're not willing to completely concede that he's the GOAT, but I'm seeing more and more of the typical IWC fan who used to roll their eyes at Roman Reigns. More and more people are starting to acknowledge the Tribal Chief. You still have the dipshits who want to, he cheats to win. Yeah, he's a bad guy. That's what he's supposed to do. But if you're a fan of professional wrestling, if you're a fan of storytelling, there is zero way that you can deny that this is the most purest form of storytelling ever from WWE. From Jey Uso, Jimmy Uso, Roman Reigns, Paul Heyman, Solo Sikoa, they have all told this story absolutely beautifully. But here's my fear. This is the fear I have. After 2 years, 2.5 years, 3 years of impeccable storytelling, there's a little part of me that looks at this and feels like Triple H has hit the fast forward button. And now we're going to speed through the last chapter. We're so excited for the grand finale that we're going to try to get to it as fast as possible and wrap up this pretty little story, put it in a pretty little box with a pretty little bow so that we can, put this in the archives as the greatest story of all time. It was just a week ago. It was just a week ago that Jey Uso joined Jimmy and turned on the Bloodline. So now 1 week, fast forward 1 week ahead, and we're already getting a Civil War match between the Usos and Roman Reigns. My issue here is that coming out of this match, there was and still is an opportunity to make Jey Uso the biggest babyface in all of professional wrestling history. But I think that this story needs more time to simmer. I think they need to give Jey Uso more time to build up this babyface character before jumping and throwing him straight back into the ring with Roman Reigns. There is a possibility. Let me make this clear. There is a possibility that Roman Reigns can come out of this entire situation looking like a sympathetic character. Because at every turn, Roman Reigns has been a dick. Roman Reigns has been an egotistical tribal chief. But at every turn in Roman Reigns' career, it's been a sidekick who turns their back on Roman Reigns. He is the one who always ends up getting stabbed in the back. So I think they needed to take more time to let this simmer. I think the better play here would have been to have Roman Reigns continue his dominance, minus the Usos. Let the Bloodline continue with Paul Heyman, Solo Sikoa, Roman Reigns, and possibly even move the Usos over to Monday Night Raw per request of Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman. Have Jey Uso go on some kind of major winning streak. Have him, the next 3 or 4 premium live events, have him win. Have them recollide somewhere down the line like Survivor Series, leading to, Team Jey Uso versus Team Roman Reigns, which then kind of spearheads Jey Uso into the Royal Rumble, where I think that's not a bad idea. Jey Uso wins the Royal Rumble and challenges Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 40 for the undisputed title. Now, I get it. I quite possibly could be overreacting to all of this. There's still a lot of story that can be told, and there's still a lot of new characters that can enter into this story. There's still a lot of Bloodline members that aren't a part of this that could be introduced into this story, and WWE can still get to WrestleMania 40 with Jey Uso versus Roman Reigns. But I've even heard the rumblings that before Jey Uso gets to Roman Reigns, we might possibly get Solo Sikoa versus Roman Reigns, which I'm okay with that too. That all works. But I'm more convinced now than I've ever been that Jey Uso has to be the person to take out the tribal chief. That's just the only way this story ends. I'll be honest, right? There were days that I wanted The Rock to return, and I wanted The Rock to be the one to dethrone Roman Reigns. And there were days that I thought Cody Rhodes would have been the proper choice to dethrone Roman Reigns. But there's only one place and one person that this story can end with, right? It has to be at WrestleMania 40, and it has to be Jey Uso going over Roman Reigns. And all I know is that after investing 2.5 years into this story, and how this story has just been so beautifully presented to us, WWE, please don't fuck this Bloodline story up. Please don't Game of Thrones this shit. Please don't rush through the final chapter of the Bloodline. Give us a proper ending. Let us get our Iron Throne moment that we missed out on in Game of Thrones. Give us the proper ending to this. Give us WrestleMania 40, Jey Uso versus Roman Reigns, and let that last optic of WrestleMania 40 be Jey Uso holding up the undisputed WWE title. You guys let me know, who do you want to dethrone Roman Reigns? And do you think that this Bloodline story has sped up to the point where it may be moving just a little bit too fast? Let me know in the comments section. All right, so last topic of the week here. I want to touch a little bit more on something I've talked about the last couple weeks, and that is Vince McMahon being involved in the booking once again of Monday Night Raw. So this past week, it was said that once again, Vince McMahon stepped in and made some last minute changes to the Monday Night Raw card, most notably canceling Seth Rollins' World Heavyweight Championship Open Challenge, and what is being perceived, though, on another solid Monday Night Raw. I think most people agree that that was another good. We've had 2 consecutively good Monday Night Raws building to Money in the Bank. Now, I know that Triple H is doing his best right now to position the World Heavyweight Championship as the workhorse title in WWE. And he wants Seth Rollins to be viewed as a fighting champion, and he wants the optics to be Seth Rollins defending that title as frequently as possible, which is a suggestion, honestly, that I made a couple weeks ago when the title was first announced, that the only way to get this title over was it needs to be put in everybody's face and make it seem like it's a big deal. Sending it to NXT, I think that works. Having open challenges, I think that works. But I think that we have to acknowledge that sometimes when you do this, it can lead to what I call nonsensical booking. A title should never be defended just for the sake of the title being defended, right? The title being defended 3 times in a matter of 2 weeks, once on Monday Night Raw, once on NXT, and then the following week at Money in the Bank. When you really think about it, it absolutely makes no sense from a booking standpoint, because any logical wrestling fan has to understand that there is zero chance someone like Seth Rollins is not going to actually be the champion when Money in the Bank rolls around against Finn Balor. They're not going to promote that match for the last 3 or 4 weeks for it to somehow fall apart and that match to be Braun Breaker versus Finn Balor or whatever convoluted person beats. It's not happening, right? So any match that takes place before Finn Balor and Seth Rollins, as logical wrestling fans, we have to know that is just a time holder. That is just a main event filling space until we get to the proper World Heavyweight Championship match at Money in the Bank. So I like what Vince McMahon did here. I like Vince McMahon stepping in and going, we have an opportunity. Let's take Finn Balor and let's have him stop the open challenge. This does a couple of things, right? It allows Seth Rollins the freedom to not have to be oversaturated and appear all the time, but the title still seems important on that Monday. It still allows him to claim to be a fighting champion. It creates a new level of intensity in this story that wasn't there before. All of a sudden, it looks like Finn Balor has hit a new level of anger that's the type of anger that could win him the World Heavyweight Championship. Finn Balor looks like a more believable suitor for that title after his attack on Monday Night Raw. Number 2, what it does is it made the NXT match just seem a little more feasible. It seemed like Seth Rollins showing up injured made him a little more vulnerable to Braun Breaker, which in turn made for, I think 90% of people knew that Seth Rollins wasn't going to lose that match, but there's a part of that there's a part of you that goes, injured, what if? What if he does? Right? But once again, I don't see the IWC running around waving the Vince McMahon flag and screaming about positive changes. When he fucks up Monday Night Raw, everybody's willing to scream, "Oh dear God, Vince is involved again." But when he takes a step in the right direction, it goes completely unnoticed and unrecognized. Now, while I'm sitting here giving out knowledge on the World Heavyweight Championship, I'm going to drop a hot take. I would absolutely love at Money in the Bank for Finn Balor to walk out as the new World Heavyweight Champion. I love the idea of the World Heavyweight title having shorter reigns, especially while Roman Reigns continues his epic 1,000+ days. I like the idea of the heavyweight championship bouncing around a little bit. Because in other sports, titles tend to bounce around. You in UFC, you can have titles bounce around every 3 months. It's not unheard of. It's not uncommon. So I like the idea of getting that belt on as many people as possible. Start getting that belt to have some lineage, some history. And I think Finn Balor is a proper second person to hold that belt, especially given his history with Seth Rollins. I think that Finn Balor winning the World Heavyweight Championship could lead to a compelling long-term story between Seth Rollins and Finn Balor. The type of story that we look for that we don't get anymore. The Stone Cold and Rock type stories, not on that level, but you know what I mean. It's something, these two, they have enough history that we could build something going forward. And a Finn Balor win would mean a lot. I also like the optics of Finn Balor and Rhea Ripley holding the title together. I like seeing both of those belts right next to each other, at least for the next couple of months. I also like the idea that at some point the Judgment Day implodes and we get a triple threat match between Dominic Mysterio, Finn Balor, and Damian Priest for the World Heavyweight Championship. Those are all ideas that I think are compelling and they can push forward and they can all circle back to at WrestleMania 40, Finn Balor versus Seth Rollins, World Heavyweight Championship on the line. That's a good 6 or 7 months of booking that you can get out of the store. You can juice this to the last drop. I'm interested to see what is the appropriate amount of time for Seth Rollins to hold the World Heavyweight Championship. How long does he have to hold it before we go, okay, that's justified. Now it's time that he can drop the belt. Has it been long enough? Would we be ready for Seth Rollins to drop? Because Seth Rollins is a guy that doesn't really need the title to feel important. You know, he got to be the first. He got the rub. He got the rocket strapped to his back from being the first champion. But he also can be a part of this story, especially with someone like Finn Balor, without being the champion. If you look right now, the Money in the Bank card is shaping up nicely. I'm not mad. I'm not mad at what we're going to see next week. Finn Balor versus Seth Rollins. That has potential to be very good. The Civil War match between the Usos and Roman Reigns. That definitely has the potential to be a very good match. We have the men's Money in the Bank, LA Knight, Shinsuke Nakamura, Ricochet, Santos Escobar, Butch, Damian Priest, and Logan Paul. I'm in for that. There's 3 guys that I think are worthy of winning in that match. And then there's a guy who's a long shot. You got the women's. What's that? Becky Lynch, Zoe Stark, Zelina Vega, Bayley, Io Sky, Trish Stratus. Okay, not mad at that. My money's on Zoe Stark there. Then to top it off, we're going to get some sort of match between Cody Rhodes and Dominic Mysterio, which I'm assuming is just leading towards a rubber match between Cody Rhodes and Brock Lesnar. I am assuming that Dominic Mysterio picks up the victory because of Brock Lesnar. That's my guess. That's my prediction if I have to predict for that match. But I'm guessing we get a good crowd in London. The overseas pay-per-views have tended to be exciting. They tend to be, I don't love the 3:00 start time. I don't love the midday premium live events, but the crowds are fun. I think it'll be a fun watch. We'll get a good reaction. I think Money in the Bank will be remembered as one of the better premium live events in 2023. And Vince McMahon's a part of it. So I don't get it. I don't get where everybody makes the connection between Vince McMahon fucking everything up. I'm just saying I don't love Vince McMahon, but we have to be fair when we talk about Vince and the good and the bad. But that is all I have for you guys this week. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Make sure to check out the Discord to meet other cool wrestling fans. Make sure to check out my other channel, The NerdyD Show. It's got a whole new format, a bunch of cool things going on over there. If you haven't already listened to it, it's a life and pop culture podcast. It's fun. Please just go over there and give it a listen. See if you like it. If you like this, you may like that. Other than that, that's all I got. I'm going to ring the final bell.
Step in the ring, if you ready, let's go. Hey, casual wrestling community show. You already know, talking WWE. Keep it rolling and hosted by Notorious NerdyD. Don't show that you gon' find. Tune in cause it's online. Hit them with a figure 4 leg lock, power driver or clothesline. We bringing that heat like the show, but you should already